Hey everybody, this is John Applegate with TeachToTheBrain.com, and I'm glad to be here today to start in with you with this second video, a follow-up to Mary's video that she just put out the other day. We're talking more about your amazing brain, wanting to give you a few facts that kind of get you started and get you introduced to what we call the brain responsive approach. Now obviously you come to see us in our trainings, you join our membership site, and a lot of this stuff goes into great detail and we'll get real specific with strategies and information. For right now though, we're just trying to give you a scratch of the surface and just kind of give you an introduction. Mary talked the other day just a little bit about some of the strategies we use to try to help create a brain responsive milieu or environment for teaching and learning, and she taught you about deficit remediation, which is our big sort of enemy that we're battling against. And remember, deficit remediation is the tendency to focus on the negative, to put the attention on that which is wrong, and to fix it, which has been something that's been used quite a bit. We can talk about how that's worked historically and who scientifically kind of figured that out and how they explain that. But just know that for right now, what we're talking about is trying to make a brain responsive approach, one that works with the way the brain works, the way the brain chemistry works, and how the brain most wants to learn. So let's get right into it today, and let's talk about a couple things that go adding on to what Mary had to say. And if you didn't see Mary's video, you can go back and see that again. It doesn't have to be in order. It's not sequential. So check this information out and then go back and see what she had to say, and you'll see how it fits together rather easily. Again, we're talking about your amazing brain, and the lesson today is that the brain basically has two main functions. And here we say the purpose of your amazing brain is number one, to survive, and number two, to thrive. Now, what exactly does that mean, okay? How do we go about surviving and how do we go about thriving? And we'll get to that in just a second. But one of the first things that occurs is our consciousness, our stream of reality as it's coming at us in our waking hours, is a constant integration of three main faculties of the mind, okay? And the first one is emotion. We are constantly having an emotional response to what's going on. Our brain has an emotional response to what we hear, what we think about, what we see, what we feel. And so emotions are constantly having an input based on the fact that our brain experiences emotion and immediately starts a chemical response to that. One, to either prepare us for something we need to be prepared for, or perhaps if it's a very positive emotion, it's simply one of the feel-good emotions that helps us continue on the path of something that's going right for us. Now, the second capacity we have in our mind, cognition. What are we thinking about? What is our processing mind doing with information that it's taking in? Again, our sensory input is bringing in things from the five senses, and then our brain wraps all these three things together. So it's emotion with cognition. And number three is reflection. So the ability to think back on what has happened in the past and to find old patterns to try to assimilate the new information that you're hearing too, so that they make sense. We're constantly looking at new information and we compare and say, does that go along with something I've heard before? If it does, then the learning of that happens a little quicker. If we don't have anything background, then we're going to have to build some background so we can build connection. All right? So this is what we're talking about when we talk about the purpose of your brain is to survive and to thrive. And it does it by integrating these three faculties. Now, when we move a little more specifically now into how we go about this survival part and to talk about sort of how the brain prioritizes those two purposes that the mind has. There are 7 primary needs that your brain has to go along with its primary function, which is to survive. When we talk about the brain having a secondary function to thrive, we have to look at the fact that that doesn't really happen if the primary function of surviving is challenged in any way. So the 7 primary needs of the brain are basically the 7 primary needs of life itself. Human life, mammal life, almost any life on Earth, basically, when you break it down, has these 7 needs. So if we were in a classroom right now, it would take you about 2 minutes to come up with all these. So we're going to do this one rather quickly as well. We need air to breathe. That's relatively obvious. We need water in our systems. We're a water-based and carbon-based life form. We require food for energy in order to continue the activities of life. We need a process of elimination so that we can get rid of the waste products that come from the food and the water and the air that we take in. There's got to be an elimination process to get rid of that waste. Sleep. Our brain needs adequate rest. Our systems have a cycle in which certain systems wait till we're asleep before they reset and make sure other systems are working properly. Shelter is obviously important. The brain needs to know that it has protection from the basic elements. Otherwise it senses that the other life functions could also possibly be in danger. And escape from pain. Another obvious one, but one you might not have thought of. The brain is constantly knowing that if something's going to be painful, the brain is going to look for an escape, look for an out. How does it avoid that pain, whether it be physical or emotional? Now, these needs are physical and innate, all right? You're born with these needs. Nobody had to tell you, make sure and breathe X number of times a day and don't go 3 weeks without water. These type of things occur to us naturally because they're physical and they're innate. Now, these are the basis of that first purpose that we talk about, that first function of the brain, the primary function, to survive. These are the basics of survival. Obviously, though, we're talking about learning. We're talking about doing something more with the human brain than just surviving. That is what we mean by the secondary function of the brain, to thrive, and what that requires is a secondary set of needs. So we have 8 secondary needs. Now, understand, the secondary needs are psychological and they're learned, which essentially also makes them cultural. These are going to change and vary as you move from culture to culture in terms of how people satisfy them, not in terms of what they are specifically. We all have these 8 secondary needs. We're all constantly negotiating relationships and issues in our life based on how we're negotiating these 8 needs. So these 8 needs are what help us to thrive. And once our survival needs are met, and the brain is comfortable with that, then these needs can be met, and if met adequately and effectively, they lead to success and achievement and everything that we kind of look for in human endeavors that's positive, creative, and productive for helping others and serving others. So let's take a look at these secondary needs of the brain. First, we're talking about inquisitiveness. And again, we're going to go through these relatively quickly. We can find a lot more detail on these if you come see us live at a seminar or check in at our website at teachtothebrain.com and take a look at how we're putting our information out there. You'll find we can get a little bit more detailed about how we do all this. Number 2, after inquisitiveness, is power. All humans are seeking their own personal power. We sort of have to find where we fit in the world, where that power can be expressed. Can it be expressed effectively? Obviously, people who express their power ineffectively, that can cause all kinds of issues. Generally speaking, when the psychological and secondary needs are not met, the consequences of not meeting these needs are usually some kind of a social consequence, some kind of a personality problem, some kind of an issue relating to others is what comes up. In classrooms, we see many of the behaviors you see in a classroom. If they're not related directly to a primary need, being hungry, being thirsty, not having enough sleep, not having shelter, those things obviously are going to get in the way of learning. But if it's the secondary needs that they're having difficulty with, then you're going to see this in behaviors, in relationship issues, in other things that create obstacles to learning. Number 3 is achievement. As humans, we all have a need to achieve. We have a need to create something, to do something, to make something, to contribute. And so again, when the needs are met, we can make that happen. Number 4 is connectedness. Again, relatively obvious. Just look at social media today. It's obvious that as human beings, we like to relate. We like to see what other people are doing. We want to know that our ideas are accepted. We want to see how other people are living their life. And we have a tendency to want to include others in how we're living our life. Autonomy. The human is looking for autonomy. What can I do that's just me? What am I in charge of? What am I responsible for? What things in the world do I create? What is my place in the world? Where do I come in? And so autonomy goes a little bit with power, finding out their place in the world. But kids need to have a way to sense some autonomy. You can't just tell them everything and not have something be their idea now and then, not have something be their choice, something that they can guide and direct. Number 6 is gregariousness. Sometimes people think of gregariousness as the life of the party, that person that wants to be on stage performing and talking loudly and having fun. And that certainly is the case. That person is probably considered very gregarious. Meanwhile, everybody looks for a way to be gregarious. Some people find it in a social setting that's a little more intimate, with closer friends, people they're comfortable with. But nevertheless, it's a human need, something that we all strive to do. Assertiveness, number 7. And assertiveness, again, it might sound like the people that are willing to speak out in times others aren't, or we talk about people that are comfortable making their ideas known in front of others where someone else might be more reserved, and that is truly a assertive quality. Meanwhile, like gregariousness, everybody's looking for their own place where they can be assertive. If you're not able to assert yourself, that's going to feel like being controlled. Things are going to get bottled up. It's just a form of expression we need as human beings. And finally, and possibly most importantly, status. Status is kind of the culmination of all of them. Where do I fit in my family setting, in my friendship setting, classrooms, communities? Everybody needs to sort of know, where's my status? Is it hierarchical? Do I feel like there's people that are better than me? Or is my status simply something I gain from personal introspection and the knowledge that I've done the right thing? So those are the 8 secondary needs. They go along with that secondary purpose of the brain, which is to thrive. And obviously that's what we're trying to do in a learning environment, is assist the learner in thriving, in moving forward with their knowledge, moving forward with their skills, so that they might find their own place in the world and see exactly how they can be a true doer and dreamer, taking action that serves us all and contributes to the well-being of the human race. Alright, so that's basically it for our second video. Keep an eye out for more videos coming. Make sure to check in at teachtothebrain.com. You can become a member of our membership program. You can come see us live in a seminar, and basically you can get yourself started on the brain responsive approach. And always remember to teach to the brain, and the heart will follow. Thank you.